In today's newspaper, there was a very dramatic article containing dramatic charges accompanied by dramatic photographs concerning the police reporting of certain crime statistics over the last 3 years. There's a few points I want to make today. I want to make them categorically. We can buttress my observations with further information from some of my subject matter experts. 3 points that need to be made. First and foremost, I categorically reject any notion that the cops don't count. For the last 4.5 years, this department has committed itself to the fight on crime. We've used data more perceptively and more carefully than any previous police department has had the capacity to do. We've increased the number of car stops from 50,000 to 190,000. We've increased the number of pedestrian stops from 14,000 to over 60,000. We have put our deployments out there on the hot spots during the times of day when crimes occur, and we have saved lives. There's 2 bellwether crimes that can give you a good idea of how you're doing with violent crime and property crime. One is homicide, and the other is car theft. People have a way of reporting their stolen cars to insurance agencies, and police are very bad at hiding dead bodies. Over the last 4 years, we've seen dramatic declines in homicide and dramatic declines in car theft. Cops matter, deployments matter, neighborhoods are improving. Second, I categorically reject any notion that there is a nexus between how a report is coded for uniform crime report purposes and how it is investigated and prosecuted. I think it was disingenuous, bordering on cynical, to link coding errors to how cases were investigated and prosecuted. If you talk to the DA's office, if you talk to our detectives, if you talk to our watch commanders, investigations and prosecutions are based on the narrative of a report, not on how it ultimately gets coded for UCR purposes at some future date. Third point needs to be made. I categorically and absolutely reject that there's any notion, real or implied, that any command member of this department has made any attempt or any direction to tell anyone to improperly reduce the severity of any crime report. I have with me a watch commander who is also a training on the uniform crime report process. I have with me the assistant chief in charge of the central records room and the senior police officer assigned to that room. I have with me the president of the Milwaukee Police Superior Officers Union. None of them will report to you that any member of the MPSO or the MPA or of the central record room or any watch commander has ever been directed by any member of the command staff to improperly change a police report. Now, our credibility to the community is important to us. We recognize that we preside over a human institution. We recognize that we will make mistakes. We recognize that we will have technological errors and human error judgments. Those things will occur. We don't make excuses for them. We do not promise perfection. We promise excellence. Now, as we move forward from the observations in today's report, a couple of points need to be made. First and foremost, apparently there was no attempt made to contextualize our error rate with anyone else. The same newspaper reported in 2006 that there were significant problems with this police department's data, but somehow no attempt was made to compare our error rates today with error rates 5 years ago. No attempt was made to compare our error rate in this regard with other police departments that use the same computer system. And no attempt was made to compare our error rate with cities of a similar size. Those of you who search the net will see that we are not unique among major American police departments in having problems that get identified with coding errors for uniform crime purposes. Secondly, there are concerns about what we're doing about our data. We asked the FBI to conduct a quality assurance audit because it came to my attention that this police department had never had one. That audit was finished 2 weeks ago. The report should be done in 30 to 45 days. When that report is finalized, I will share it with the Fire and Police Commission and with the public. Secondly, on our own, we have undertaken an internal audit looking at our error rates of today and comparing them ourselves to error rates of prior years to try to get a sense of whether or not we are improving or degrading our capacity to detect errors. When those internal audits are finished, they will be shared with the Fire and Police Commission. They will also be shared with the general public. In many ways, these are issues of competence as well as integrity. I have absolute faith in the integrity of this organization. Human error is not the same as malicious change of data. And as we move forward from this, and as we continue to work to make our data more accurate, we make it more accurate for the following purpose. We want to make our crime-fighting tactics more effective. The purpose of our collecting data is to have an impact on the lives of the citizens of Milwaukee. In 3 of the last 4 years, we have produced homicide rates that were 20-year lows. We went from a 20-year average of 127 homicides a year to a 4-year average of 85. That's progress. There are people alive today who would not be if we had not used our data effectively and deployed helpful policing tactics. Now, I'm going to take a moment and introduce to you some of the people that are involved in the collection of this data and the reporting of this data. And I'll start with Assistant Chief Hagan, who is the commander of the Administrative Bureau in which Central Records resides. Chief Hagan.
Chief, there's 2 points that need to be made. One, that the Central Records is part of the Administration Bureau, as is the Internal Affairs. Internal Affairs has never received any complaints from any member of the department in which they were instructed or perceived receiving instructions to change a report. The second thing, in a conversation today with senior leadership of the Milwaukee Police Association, the union that represents the 1,700 police officers and detectives, they have received no complaints from any of their membership regarding the coding of reports or being instructed by leadership, whether at the sergeant or at the lieutenant level or anywhere else in the department, to change any reports. I brought with me Carla Bridges. She's one of the officers that works in Central Records. She can explain how these reports are coded into the system. Carla.
Good afternoon, everyone. I've been with the Milwaukee Police Department for 23 years. I've been assigned to the Records Management Division for 6 years. In that assignment, my coworkers and I, we review all police reports prior to submitting them to the state of Wisconsin as well as the FBI. The review process, it often requires that we make adjustments to the reports. It also requires we make corrections when errors are noted. We continually are training our personnel in an effort to reduce those errors, and we have made significant progress, but there's also room for improvement. Occasionally errors are missed by our staff, and we also make additional errors during the review process. I stand here today to tell you that me and my fellow workers, we are dedicated to our profession and have not altered reports for the purpose of affecting crime numbers.
Thanks, Carl. Jeff Point is a former homicide lieutenant. He's also currently a watch commander. Part of his job is reviewing reports. But when the Tiburon system was introduced, he was a trainer at the time, trying to help our officers make a better use of the computer system, as it can be somewhat confusing with a large number of drop-down screens that require a lot of time and attention. He's going to spend a moment talking about what our officers have been trained to do, but also describing some issues that have arisen over the course of the implementation of this system.
Thanks, Chief. Good afternoon, everybody. As the Chief mentioned, in 2005, the Milwaukee Police Department transitioned from our old-fashioned pencil and paper system of reporting to the current computerized system that we use right now that we've all seen covered ad nauseum in the media over the last 7 years. During that transition in 2005, I was one of the lead instructors in conducting that transition training for the entire department. Every officer and supervisor on this department went through 24 hours, that's 3 full 8-hour days of transition training. That was hands-on, sitting at the computer training. And I bring that up just to give you an idea. This was not a quick introduction to this class. It's a very, labor-intensive, detail-oriented class because it's a very difficult system to use. And it took that long to train all the officers to use the system and all the supervisors to be able to review the system properly. Since that time, over the last 7 years, we've conducted a great deal of additional training to the officers and supervisors in order to improve our proficiency with the system. Now, I can tell you, having reviewed thousands of reports, I'm currently assigned to the day shift at District 1 as the watch commander there. I have 123 officers and supervisors that work under me, and I review not only the officers' reports, but the sergeant's review of their reports. Everything, all the low-level type of crimes, everything from auto thefts to car break-ins to burglaries, the type of things that are investigated at the uniform officer level. In my previous assignment, as the chief said, I was assigned to the homicide unit. I reviewed homicide reports, sex crimes reports, the most important high-level reports that we as a department generate. And I can tell you without any hesitation, there has never been any effort, there's never been any pressure from above me, and I've never applied any pressure to my subordinate supervisors to make any changes to these reports in order to under-report crime. It's in our best interest to report crime accurately as it's presented to us by victims and witnesses, and to generate reports that accurately reflect that. Police officers are trained to think of crime in terms of state statutes. If a crime is committed, what state law was violated, what can we arrest a person for, what charges can we get a district attorney to prosecute and prove before a jury. Our system, our computerized system, is designed to take the state statutes that officers have all been trained to think in terms of, and to marry that up with the FBI UCR guidelines, which are the coding issues that we've been talking about. Again, it took me 24 hours to train every class of officers and supervisors on this department how to use this system. It's not something I can explain in 5 minutes. It's a very involved system. But the system is designed to marry up the FBI requirements with the state statute requirements, and it does that behind the scenes without the intervention of the officers. The system is not the most user-friendly. It allows for a lot of opportunities for inadvertent errors to be made, but I can tell you, again, from my background in homicide and sex crimes, none of these errors have any effect on the police work that we do. The people that we arrest, the cases we refer to prosecution, the cases that are prosecuted, these are all clerical errors that occur behind the scenes, and they really do not affect what we do as a police department.
All right, Jeff, thanks. All right, we'll take some questions now, and those questions I don't know the answer to. The more detail they got, I might not. I'll refer to some of the folks that I've got with me here today.
Chief, the article mentions about 500 cases that if they had been coded properly, the crime rate, instead of going down, would have gone up 1.1%. In light of these numbers, can you still say that the violent crime rate is down in Milwaukee? I
believe the crime rate's down. I absolutely do. I have no reason to doubt it. I don't doubt the math either. If we're up 1% in a given year, you know what? 1% is within a margin of error. I mean, you know, the political polls we're hearing ad nauseum always talk about their 3% margin of error. There's a reason why the FBI uniform crime reports allow you 2 years to fix your reports. You know, you don't always get it right the first time. Sometimes the quality assurance rate comes in and says, oops, you know, you've got a consistent coding error here. Look at all of your reports and review them again. That's what's been discovered here. We apparently have a fairly consistent coding error. Important point that was made by Lieutenant Point here is that that doesn't affect how we prosecute people. It doesn't affect how we investigate crimes. Those are based on the narrative. And if we've got coding issues that need to be adjusted, we'll adjust them. I mean, we're a transparent organization and have been all along. And we've worked hard to get this data right. We've offered people access to it before. We'll offer them access to it again. And if we're making mistakes, we'll correct them. But I mean, as I said, we're not hiding dead bodies here. There's been a significant increase in the level of violence on the streets, and we're doing our best, deploying our resources on the hot spots, stopping thousands of people a year to have an impact on conduct in public spaces. And I believe that's having an effect on the crime rate in this city.
City Aldermen are calling for an independent audit by the City Comptroller's Office. Would you welcome such an audit?
What we're going to do is finish our audit and present it to the Fire and Police Commission, and we will await the results of the FBI audit and report that to the Fire and Police Commission. If people are dissatisfied with the results of those two audits, then the political process can take its course.
State Senator Alberta Darling is calling for an audit by the Legislative Audit Bureau.
Well, that's splendid. If she had anything to do, What's that?
Would you welcome that audit?
Listen, we are really perilously close to the political reindeer games that are being played with the crime rate in this city. And I certainly have no reason to doubt that Alberta Darling is doing anything else but playing political reindeer games with our crime rate. We're going to proceed methodically and do the right thing by the citizens of Milwaukee. I respect the fact that we're in the middle of a political campaign and there's a lot of hay being made about Milwaukee's crime rates and the issues that afflict the largest city in the state. But I'm not going to confuse those political reindeer games with our obligations.
Any of the information that's being inputted incorrectly, is this a manpower issue? Do you need to hire more? Do you need to move resources around to be able to have more people in that office to review these reports and make sure that data is being entered correctly?
Well, we've already made one adjustment. We had set up a situation where everybody was a generalist. So everybody kind of took their turn reviewing a crime in the Central Records Bureau and deciding how to code it for UCR. We have, in the last couple of months, trained them to be subject matter experts. So one person will get assaults and be an expert on the difference between simple assault and aggravated assault. Somebody else will be an expert in larcenies and burglaries. Somebody else will be an expert in car thefts. We'll do better. What we've got are judgment errors. And they're consistent judgment errors of almost the identical type all the way along the line. And that's what we've got to address, and we'll do it effectively and report on the changes.
Last question, Jenna.
The two audits that you mentioned, how long have those been going on and when were they requested?
The FBI audit was requested by me. That was finished 2 weeks ago, and we were told there would be a report in about 45 days. That's what we'll present to the Commission. We started our own audit about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I don't exactly remember when. That was also at my request. What we're doing is comparing the error rates of 2007 with the error rates of last year to see if they've been reduced or if they've been increased. We need to identify if we're doing something better even with the error rate that's been reported or if we're doing something worse.
Thank you, everybody. We appreciate you coming
the
today.
Lieutenant mentioned input information, though. Does the software need to be upgraded again? We're talking 2005, the software was implemented. Is it a matter of the FBI working with law enforcement across the nation and upgrading the systems to something that works better?
Well, one of the challenges for all of us, before I walk around, is everybody's got a different system. There is no uniformity, and some systems are inherently more complicated than others. It was extensively reported in this city's newspapers and TV stations in 2005 and 2006 and 2007 that the software and hardware package did not produce usable crime data. I spent the better part of my first year here standing up the Tiburon system so it produced daily crime numbers. It does that, and it does it fairly well after a great deal of effort. But that's a separate issue than how we're coding them, how we are coding them. Now, part of our coding problems arise from the fact that it's a very complicated data entry system for a working copper at 11 o'clock at night to get through all the drop-down screens. Second part of the coding issue problems are our own judgment errors. All right, are we catching them at the point of supervision? Are we catching them in central records? And those are things we have some control over. So, I need to control the things I can control. And if we can do a better job in those two areas, we will do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.